Well, it's finished Arsenal 2, Wolves 0. I'm going to try and not nitpick on individual players because I feel like some had a good performance and some didn't today. What I would say, though, is that I felt that there were two players for our side tonight who showed that they have talent and desire to win a game of football, and that's Hugo Bueno and Boubacar Traoré. Those two tonight were by far our best players on the pitch. I thought Guedes was good in the first half in spells as well, but in the second half he spent most of the time throwing his arms up and not really giving a shit or pressing. So by the 50th, 60th minute, he looked pretty conked out and had no stamina left, and should have been substituted earlier, to be fair, I feel. However, what I would say is that when Neves isn't at the top of his game and dropping in a 7 or an 8 out of 10, there's no chance this team is going to win any game of football. He's so important to the way that we tick, and today he didn't have his best game, I thought. And so we lost the midfield battle in the second half pretty convincingly. They had quality, getting in behind our defence a lot of the time, even with a back three. They were still finding space in behind quite easily, I felt, at points. But what I would say is that all of their potent threat came down the right hand, so their left, our right hand side. So Semedo and Lembekisa's side. Hugo Bueno was very solid, and I think that Saka didn't really have a good moment all night because of the way that Hugo Bueno was playing. He was great going forward as well. So a really positive performance. Last few performances from Hugo Bueno have been very impressive, actually. I think he's probably our best left back, which is saying something. But our right back's a serious issue. Credit to Arsenal. They're a great side in form, and their fans today were probably some of the best that I've seen at Molineux in a while, considering it's pretty hard to make a noise in that bottom Steve Bull tier, so fair play to them. But yeah, it's just really disappointing now that we're going into the World Cup break 4 points adrift at the bottom of the league. Not a position that anyone wants to be in, and Julian Lopetegui now has a huge job on his hands, but it was nice to see before the game him come out and clap all around the stadium, all around the fans, and he got a good reception, I feel. So I hope that he's inspired and motivated to help turn the ship around, and hopefully we can stay up in the Premier League this season, but I'm not 100% convinced at the moment. We need help in January, and then hopefully over this next 6 weeks, or the World Cup break, Lopetegui can stamp his authority on these players. Fingers crossed that we turn the ship around. Yeah. Up the Wolves, come on.
Well, Wolves 0, Arsenal 2. Another frustrating evening really at Molineux. Never expect to beat Arsenal, it's always going to be tricky. You know, they're very good side, they're not top of the league for nothing. But I actually thought we played quite well. Went to 5 at the back. I don't really want to see us playing that too often going forward. I think we lack something going forward when we do play that formation. But I think against Arsenal was probably the right move. You knew that they were going to have a lot of the ball. Still like to see us put a little bit more pressure up the ball, a bit higher up the pitch. But again, always going to be a tough game against a really good side. So, but we played well, contained them for the most part. Probably had the better chances actually first half. Went in 0-0 at half time, had the better chances. Really not happy with Stuart Atwell's performance in the middle of the park, and equally with VAR, and that has only got worse having got home and seen the Sky coverage of the penalty we should have had after 8 minutes, when Guedes has run through and just gone, the Arsenal player's gone absolutely through the back of him as last man as well, and there's an argument he wasn't actually anywhere near the ball and could have been sent off as well. But that's typical when you're down the bottom, you just don't get those decisions go against you. But the frustrating thing really with VAR is it's supposed to be there to cut them sort of things out and make sure they do get the right decisions. But I think they looked at it for about 5 seconds, decided it wasn't worth it and carried on, which was clearly the wrong decision, and everyone seems to agree with that. But yeah, tricky. We go into Christmas, bottom of the league, which is obviously nowhere near where we need to be. Very frustrating when we've got probably the best team on paper that I've ever seen at Wolves, and they're just not performing at the moment. So it's always going to be hard today, but Lopetegui, paraded around the pitch at the beginning of the game, and he's definitely got a tough ask on his hand. But you do think there is some really good players there, and hopefully add to that in January as well, and we'll be okay. But bottom of the league is obviously not where you want to be, and we just don't look like scoring, which is the main concern. I think we've over the last few years we've kind of sold or in Jimenez's case, just gone AWOL, all of our top scorers really over the years and replaced them with good players, but no one really that's got a history of regularly hitting the back of the net, which then makes it tricky. I thought Semedo came back in, played very well today after he was shocking, obviously in the last game when he got sent off. All of the back three really did okay. Totti probably the pick of the bunch for me. Collins was disappointing again, really, especially for their second goal. Zinchenko runs what feels like almost from the corner flag right into the box along the byline, and Collins is playing musical statue, stood there not moving, gets absolutely nowhere near him and just lets him run into the box and cross it, and ultimately they score, which was disappointing. Probably special mention for Bueno tonight, who was excellent from an England perspective. If Saka's got the best we've got to offer, we're going to be in trouble because Bueno absolutely pocketed him tonight, and probably more of a positive for Bueno than it is a negative for Saka, to be honest, because Bueno has been playing excellently. Two up front I thought did well, played the game well. Moutinho a little bit disappointing. I think again at his age he's probably just slightly off the pace, but did okay. But probably the right decision to be replaced. Traore I thought was excellent in terms of Boubacar Traore. Just runs that midfield really good in the middle of the park. Beat a couple of men as well, which I didn't know he had in his locker, but can certainly pick a pass and get a shot off as well. So looks a really solid addition. But I still feel like we probably need one more in there. Striker is obviously the main concern, and get somebody in who knows where the back of the net is and can bring others into play. I think will be key. Podence again thought did well when he came on, created a couple of decent opportunities. He's a funny one really, Podence. We're not really sure if he's a winger or a 10, but we certainly look better when he's on the pitch. So for me, he probably has to play, but I understand why he didn't start with him today. It seemed like the right tactic to try and hit Arsenal on the counter. But you just hope now we've got 6 weeks World Cup break. Not that many players really going to the World Cup, which I think is going to be really key for us. So Lopetegui in, get them working, drill them well, get them pressing, get them playing higher up the pitch, and I think the chances will come. Talking to a couple of people today about scrapping at the bottom, but I don't think we're that kind of team, and hopefully we won't need to be scrapping. We can just play some good football and get out of there. I try and compare it to Newcastle last year, before Eddie Howe went in there and they spent some money. They were struggling, really struggling towards the bottom, and they didn't scrap their way out of it. They just bought some good additions, played some good football with a good manager, and got out of it, and obviously reaping the rewards this year as well, and fingers crossed we'll do the same. So yeah, I still think it's going to be a tough season. I do still think we'll stay up, but not easily. But yeah, another frustrating afternoon. Referees are not helping, and it gets to the stage you think they're either grossly incompetent or cheating, and I'm starting to lean towards the latter, to be honest. But Christmas break now, bring on England in the World Cup, and yeah, we'll reconvene. I guess actually just before Christmas with the cup game, and hopefully a good solid win against Gillingham to get Lopetegui's start off well, and we'll go from there.
To finish, Wolves 0, Arsenal 2. Really disappointing and frustrating, and I'm getting a bit sick of this football club at the moment, and going to watch them every week is really starting to take a toll on me and other fans as well. It's not just me, it's people around us. We can see how bad we are. It's getting to the point now where I don't care if single players are playing well. We're not winning football games, and at the end of the day, it's a results-based business. We're not winning games, we're not scoring goals. So who cares if people are having singularly good performances? It's not good enough as a collective. They might be doing well in their own game, but as a team, we are dreadful. A really shit football team we are. We set up in the 5 today, and I thought, okay, he wants to be a bit better defensively, and we showed that in the first 45 minutes. I thought Semedo and Bueno had a really good first half. We weren't really troubled. We go into half time and you think, okay, we come out second half, have a good 10, 15 minute spell. And we might be able to press on and get forward a little bit more, but we can see 55 minutes in, and next thing you know, it's hands in the air, and we've given up. We gave up today. That is the reason we've lost the game. We gave up. Every single one of them gave up. We've got no bollocks, no leaders, no quality. We've got nothing in that team to come back. Say, like, when you go 1-0 down, no one picks each other up and, come on, lads, we're still in this. It's never like that. It's oh shit, we've conceded. Oh well, next week, try again. And that is the problem that Wolves have at the moment. There's no nothing about this club at the moment. It's really, really difficult for me to pinpoint what's gone wrong, or where it's gone wrong, who's at fault, because they're all at fault, really. I think their first goal today is laughable. One little through ball and across the box and a tap in. It's just hilarious that no one's closing him down. You've got 5 men at the back and then everybody's in the box anyway. And the second one's even worse. How he's allowed to get 3 shots off and then score the last one without anybody throwing their body in the way, making a block, pressing him, and he's just allowed to just tap the ball home is quite funny, really, when you look at it from a fan's perspective. I'm really sick of the fact that we go in, week out, we pay our money. We want to see something. We want to see some good performances. We want to see people try. I don't mind if people try. If we try and lose, fair play. They're a better side than us. We try and lose, fair enough. But to just give up is inexcusable, in my opinion. We tried to mount some sort of attacks in short spells in the game. I think we're unlucky not to get a penalty. I think it's a stick on, and the referees, not just this season, but as a whole, it's some of the worst things I've ever seen in my whole entire life. The VAR was non-existent today. You know, Saliba gets sent off and we might score the penalty, and it's a completely different game again. It's fine margins, I think, this season between winning games and losing games, but the margins towards the losses have been a lot more than the margins towards the wins, which is sad to see, really. And I don't know if bringing a new manager in helps. We'll soon see that, but I can't see how a new manager gets these players up for it. I can't see that. I think they're all a bit. They all need to take a good hard look at themselves and think, am I good enough to play in this football team? Or am I good enough to play in this league? Full stop, really. It goes a lot to say that at the end of Steve Davis's tenure, the only real ones that can hold their heads up high are the academy lads, and Neves a couple of times. Bar that, I think they've all been dreadful. Yeah, so I'm glad we've got 6 weeks off. He's got a lot of hard work to do. I've read somewhere that they've got a couple of weeks off, which I think is an absolute joke. How they can just go away after being bottom of the table, and can have a holiday or go and enjoy some sun. I think that's an absolute ridiculous thing to suggest. Maybe a couple of days, yeah, but not weeks. They should be training, learning a new system, playing the way that the new manager wants to play, and making sure they're ready for Gillingham, really, and more importantly, Everton on the weekend after, because we are in serious trouble. I realised that today, purely for the fact that we just gave up. So yeah, Julian's got a tough job, and I hope he can pull us out of it. But with these players, Christ knows. Cheers for having me on, boys. Up the Wolves.
Yeah, so it's finished 2-0 Arsenal. in a result which was probably expected across the entirety of the fan base, which is disappointing result, although expected considering the way that we played during that first half. I thought it was a proper valiant effort from the lads in the first half defensively. Looked decent on the counter-attack. Apart from some very good individual performances from the likes of Boubacar Traoré once again and Hugo Bueno once again, the better team won on the night, and I think that's relatively easy to accept if you're ignoring the penalty decision in the first 10 minutes. Onto that, I'm not going to make a big meal of it because I think ultimately we would have lost that game had we had the penalty. But if it was given, and it would have been, in my head anyway, a denial of a goal scoring opportunity. Therefore, it would have been a red card, and I think it's a different game from that point. We would have had the ability to be a bit more confident on the ball, put more men forward, but we're severely missing some attacking identity. We're missing players in the box, patterns of play, and I think that's to be expected considering the manager that we have. I think Steve Davis has done a decent job considering his kind of acumen as a manager, and his previous jobs. You know, no other man with that resume would have got the job, but he put in a fire. He put a fire in the bellies of the Wolves players, which was needed at a time where we needed points desperately. We haven't got those points, unfortunately, and now we sit rock bottom of the table on 10 points after 15 games. And I don't care who's the manager, that's criminal. That's the form of a team that goes down, unfortunately. And I think I'm coming to terms with the fact that unless Lopetegui comes in after the World Cup and performs a miracle, that could be our fate. It's really disappointing. I think we've been extremely poor in both sides of the pitch this season. Bar individual moments of brilliance and luck, we have found ourselves on 10 points. I think that there haven't been any notable games that I can think we actually deserve to win, and that rang true again today. We didn't deserve to win today. Should have had a penalty. It's whatever. Stuart Atwell didn't give us any decisions. It's whatever. But we set up to defend. We set up to nick a 1-0 win today, and it didn't happen. And when you do set up to defend, and the visitors go 1-0 ahead, go one ahead, we're never going to come back from that. I mean, we've struggled enough when we've had the ball, so if they go one ahead without us having the ball, we stand no chance. Yeah, it's tough because thank God we've got the World Cup break, because I think that's desperately needed for Lopetegui to kind of transmit his ideas across to these players, and thankfully we don't have too many players going to the World Cup. They don't deserve to because they haven't been performing well enough. I think had we had more kind of better performances from the likes of Podence, the likes of Guedes, we'd have more going, but it's positive for us in a way because it means Lopetegui can get his ideas across as soon as possible and as quickly as possible, because we're going to need it. Thankfully Everton are on the slip, so I think that's his first league game, if I'm not mistaken, after Gillingham. We're going to see what happens. It's tough being a Wolves fan right now. The only bit of positivity is the fact that we've got a new manager. Hopefully we get a kick. Hopefully we get a new manager bounce. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Not a huge amount to talk about, but that's the case with Wolves at the moment. Not really too many chances to speak of. I think, Guedes had a couple of opportunities. Adama had a couple of shots that were sprayed wide. Podence had an audacious bicycle kick that flew past goal, but apart from that, there wasn't a huge amount to speak about. Yeah, not too informative for you lads, I'm afraid, but there we go. We'll see you after the World Cup. Hopefully we've got something more positive to speak of, but yeah, I'll see you in a few weeks.
So Lopetegui in the stands today. Seen us lose. I mean, we all saw that one coming really, but it's still a bit of a shame. I thought we played okay first half. We took the game to them as far as I was aware. Didn't give them too many opportunities. Considering they're top of the league, they're flying, I thought we made them look pretty average first half. There was obviously that Jesus goal, but he was a country mile offside, so that doesn't really bother me. But yeah, again, it's kind of a case of two halves for Wolves. Come out in the second half, players are walking round. Even when we've got the ball, you can kind of see why players be walking around when the ball's on the other side of the pitch with Arsenal's possession. But we were going forward and players were just walking around. And if there was ever anything I'd seen that kind of explains why we're not scoring any goals, I reckon you can put that down as the top reason. Nobody's doing anything that is going to scare that Arsenal defence. Apart from maybe Boubacar Traore, I thought he had a great game. We already knew that he was like a defensive midfielder. He was going to get himself around, get stuck into challenges, but I thought his movement with the ball and his choice of pass was excellent. Probably the best on the pitch today, in a Wolves shirt. I thought the 2 goals were avoidable but also unlucky. I think Arsenal are really good at overloading one side of the pitch and then just kind of cutting it across to a player that's unmarked. We definitely could have defended them better, but again, when you're playing a team that's top of the league like that, there's not a lot you can do, really. I think the international break's coming at a good time. I think we need a few weeks away to kind of reset. Lopetegui's obviously in, so he's got a lot of time to work with players, and we haven't got that many players going on the international break, or going to the World Cup, I should say. So he's really got a full squad to work with for the next 6 weeks, which is a positive. The only negative I'm taking from the World Cup is I've now got to look at Wolves' bottom of the table for the next 6 weeks, which obviously that's not going to be fun. And I know as soon as the season kicks off again, I'm going to be proper down in the dumps, and we're going to need to start stringing some wins together as soon as possible. Hopefully Lopetegui does that. I don't think we'll go down. I think everybody's stressing way too much about us going down. It's still so early. Anything can happen second half of the season. But yeah, that's all I've really got to say. Thanks for having me on.